Hello and welcome back. This is The Experience and video number 3. So what we're going to do, like we talked about earlier, is we are going to prep your course outline. So in other words, what we're going to do is we are going to plan ahead before we do any sort of implementation. So prepping your course outline from the moment they purchase to the moment they finish consuming your course is very important. So in other words, what we're trying to do is we're trying to lay out all the steps that they must go through because this is crucial. So in other words, step by step by step. Now, for example, the very first video should be about introducing your students, and that's really important. So if you don't have that, you might want to make that as an addition. So you might want to say, thank you for your purchase. Here's a quick overview of all the videos that are laid out and show it in action. And oftentimes you want to make this video last because this will be after you've set everything up. So you'll be able to show, okay, so you log into this WordPress site. This is what you do. You can see lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see these topics, all that. So what that does is it puts people in the frame of mind of, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I can expect. And it kind of takes away that fear. So you need to give people an idea of what to expect because a lot of times they have anxiety or fear of what's ahead. And that anxiety or fear, a lot of times is what prevents them from moving forward. So what you're doing here is you're helping them move forward. Next, you want to make sure that these steps from there make it easy for your students to consume your content. So like I previously mentioned, maybe you have the welcome video, and then after that, you have maybe a checklist that they can download, and whatever else will make it easier. So in other words, you don't have to necessarily make more videos besides the first introduction video, but you want to lay it out so that you can see, okay, so should I put all of these videos, step 1, step 2, step 3, all different steps, or should I do video 1 and maybe the introduction and the video 1 and then a checklist and maybe a Word document of some sort in between the videos so that I don't overwhelm people and all of that. And we'll talk about drip feeding and how to prevent people from being overwhelmed. So in other words, what I'm talking about here is basically adding buffer pages or pages in between each video if they need more clarification. Now, the only way to know how to do all of this is to map it out. All right. So let's head on over to a mind mapping software and do this now. Okay, so I want to say that it doesn't matter what you use to map your plan or outline out. What I'm using here is a software. It's an online web application called Lucid Chart. That's lucidchart.com. Now, if you're not a visual person and you would prefer to use something like Notepad or a piece of paper, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's just a matter of mapping it out so that you are able to see step 1, step 2, step 3, and all the steps ahead so that you can take this blueprint and implement it later down the road. So we got this here. This is the online course. And the next one, we're going to say video number 1. And actually before that, of course, we have the introduction or quick overview. A lot of times, like I said, I like to complete this video after everything has been set up. So as you can imagine, if your site has been set up and laid out, and then you make this video, what this enables you to do is show people everything in action. So whatever they see on your screen is likely what they are seeing on their screen as well. So what it does, like I said, is it takes away that anxiety. So the next thing we've got is from, let's say, the introduction. We have video number 1. And of course, typically, if you have your course in hand, you're automatically going to have, video 1, video 2, video 3. And for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to say we've got 4 different videos. Now, obviously, most video courses and online courses are going to be a lot longer than that. So what we're going to do now is, let's actually move this up. Let's see here. What I like about Lucidchart is you can pretty much map it out so that you can see, okay, this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3. We move from here to here. And let's see here to here, and here to here, like that. All right. So this is our whole course. And what I want to do now is get a better view of how can I make this more engaging? Perhaps what are areas that people are confused about? And how can I improve my students' success rate? So obviously, if you have your online course, you're very passionate about your course and you're very passionate about helping your students. So once you have that, you can figure out, okay, we're going to go through here. We got the online course, we got the introduction, the quick overview, and they have video number 1. And let's say video number 1, a lot of times when people get overwhelmed, they go from video 1, video 2, and then video 3, and then they start to get overwhelmed. So in order to do this, what we want to do is we want to break things up. And the way you break things up, like I mentioned earlier, is to add buffer pages. So what we could do here is video number 1, we could have, in addition to that, we could have a document, maybe a checklist or a summary of video 1. And maybe after that, you can create some homework. Now, you don't have to call it homework. Homework sometimes has a bad connotation. So you can say to-do list. So before they can move on to video number 2, in other words, they have to do the to-do list. So maybe they learned something here and they need to implement that in here. So you see what's happening? The majority of courses have it where it's like watch video 1, watch video 2, watch video 3, and then they get overwhelmed and they quit. So what you're trying to do here is you're trying to break things down so that it's not as overwhelming. All right, so once they've finished the to-do list, then they can move on to video number 2. So in that case, we delete that arrow. So it goes from here to here. And then next we have video number 2 to 3. Now, during tests, we found that a lot of times when you have some sort of document like a checklist or a summary of that video, it helps. It helps a lot. So let's see here. Let's move this up here like this. And from video 2, we have another checklist and a summary. And maybe a to-do list. So as you can see, the to-do list basically tells people, okay, this is what you need to do next. So you need to do this next before you get to the next video. So we do that. Now, we want to mix things up. You don't want it to stay too consistent. So maybe after video number 3, we can offer something like, we'll do summary's good, but maybe instead of a to-do list, we have a quiz, but a short quiz. Not a long quiz, but a short quiz. Remember, you don't want to overwhelm people. So we're going to delete this. We're going to go from the short quiz to video number 4. Now, you could set it up so that in order for them to move to video 4, they have to get the questions right. But from our findings, what we found is a lot of times that can become frustrating, especially if they answer it wrong. So what that does is it makes things negative, and we don't want to create a negative environment. You want to keep things positive and keep them excited. So let's move from a short quiz to video number 4. So same thing here. We can do this here, and we'll do video 4. And that here. Now, what's nice about WordPress, the plugins that we're going to be using, is that you can also add things like certificates. So in other words, when they finish the course, they get a certificate with their name on it. Now, you can do that with the plugin that we recommend, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Now, what I want to say is a lot of times what people do is they buy the course, but in order for them to stay, there needs to be a community, or they need to have the ability to engage with you. So having sold many courses over the years, we found that even though there's a course, if there's no community, it's hard to get people back to your site. So that's kind of a basic outline here, and we definitely want to keep things basic. You don't want to complicate it any further. We can add things like forums, which we'll discuss later on. So we could add a forum, and typically you want to, after the introduction video and the quick overview, you could send them to a link to the forum. Now, depending on how you set things up, if you have a Facebook group, you can send them to that link. If you're utilizing the WordPress plugin that we recommend, sometimes they are connected to forums like bbPress and other community and forum plugins. So that's kind of a brief map of what you can do. You can do anything that you want. Just make sure that it's not too overwhelming, because as you can see, this is video number 4 and we've already got so many different steps. We want to make it fun. We want to make it short and quick, but we don't want to have too many steps. So one thing you could do is you could just have maybe a to-do list and a summary and a to-do list all bundled up into one. You could do that. You could break these up into sections like lessons and maybe have a summary for the whole lesson instead of each individual video. So those are just some general ideas that you can use.